like to thank you, our good debaters, fellow students, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Representing TI Ahmadiyya Senior High School, I like this Academy. The eloquent principal speaker strongly rising to fully support the motion quote. The use of social media should be restricted for children under 16 years and quote. Panel of judges, as the principal speaker, permit me to explain the key terms in the motion as and when needed. Exhibit who intended him to back up his first. Social media is defined by the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionaries as websites or software programs which is used for social networking. These sites include TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, and many others. The Cambridge English Dictionaries defines restricted as limited, especially through official rules and regulations. Today, the motion simply seems to stipulate that children below the age of 16 years should be limited and controlled when it comes to the use of social media. My supporting speaker and I support the motion. But before I begin, let me say what we mean by social media, because my opponents will try to find it. When we talk about social media, we mean platforms built around systematic view. This platform shows what a child will see in order to keep the child watching. Ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about this, we do not mean gaming, we do not mean messaging, we do not mean search engine, or even educational services. After all, a 15-year-old child under this motion can still test their friend, join study chat and do whatever she wishes to do. What she cannot do is being handed with endless stream selected by the system in order to profit from the child's attention. Panel of judges today, I have mounted this podium not to prove social media as an evil, but for a child below the age of 16 years, the risk outweighs the benefit. In light of this, point number one, we support the motion because we believe that restriction prevents children under the age of 16 years from sextortion. Sextortion is in the form of blackmail, in which the attacker threatens to send sexual images and videos of you to others. If you do not send them money or send any additional sexual content, sextortion usually begins with a normal conversation online. Then the attacker moves the conversation into a sexual and romantic direction before asking the victim to send you pictures and videos. However, you all will agree with me that children below the age of 16 years lack digital literacy. Therefore, they can easily fall in the hands of these pricks as predators. Panel of judges, it is in direction with this that in December 2022, a report by the FBI and other partners issued a national joint public safety alert. Panel of judges, my opponents may argue that parents should regulate the use of social media by their children. That argument is granted, but the fact is, are they enough? Because a report by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in the year 2025 reveals that they reported over 100 cases of sextortions daily. Yes, you heard me right. Over 100 cases of sextortions daily. Now the chair with this. Should we leave this canker in the hands of parents alone, or is there any other alternative? My opponent, the answer is surely needed. Point number two, we support the motion because we believe that social media displaces real-world social development. Social development is the process in which children acquire social skills and a beneficial behavior patterns through physical contact with family, friends, and the society in general. Early adolescence is when a child learns how to physically interact with others, engage in outdoor games, and do many other things. Ladies and gentlemen, those are skills, and adolescence is when they are late. Without restriction, social media platforms will strip away all this, leading to anxiety, that makes self-esteem and loneliness. My opponents will argue that social media platforms connect children to the world, but they should keep in mind that the likes, the shares, and the comments are just a poor substitute for human connection. After all, and notification is not a conversation. And this brings me to my third point, ladies and gentlemen. We support the motion because we believe that restriction prevents cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is in the form of bullying, which uses electronic means to harass, intimidate, and causes harm to people. It involves calling people with names and also sending unnecessary messages to them. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone can stand the risk of being bullied online, but for a child below the age of 16 years, they are not trusted and therefore they are seen as a clear example for their tormentors. Ladies and gentlemen, empirical evidence from Pew Research Center reveals that many children in the United States, or almost half of the teenagers in the United States, have experienced cyberbullying with this. My opponents may argue that instead of restriction, the social media platform should mandate and also block some sites. But the fact is, and then provide specific 2 examples of social media sites that mandate how to use. If they have any idea that I proceed. While there are online courses that safeguard adults in the use of social media, there is none for children below the age of 16. And this have confronted international communities, which include UK and Australia, who have now been taking steps in order to restrict their children from using social media platforms. If these regulations incite us to think, how on earth will my opponent argue that even toddlers should have social media accounts? Panel of judges perhaps at this juncture, let me preempt some fallacies my opponents may mount this podium to assert. They may argue that restrictions on social media will bring about banning to social media, but they should keep in mind that that argument is a straw man fallacy because there are activities that, as I'm speaking, they are restricted to children, including driving, voting, alcoholism, and many others. It doesn't mean that we hate the children or that those activities are even no, but rather restricting those activities because children are immature in order to engage in those activities. Panel of judges, as I'm speaking, evidence from the child rights. Thank you.
I believe that the government should ban children under 16 from using social media. This sounds like a protective idea to protect children from bullying, bad content, and wasted time. But when you look closely, especially in the Ghanaian setting, this motion does more harm than good. Therefore, a total restriction of social media for children under 16 would be a blatant denial of valuable benefits. The chair, impartial panel of judges, meticulous timekeeper, distinguished public acquaintances, ladies and gentlemen, good day. I am shocked baffled with that one person. The principal speaker for Juaben Senior High School to get the absolute position of the motion, quote unquote, the use of social media should be restricted for children under 16. The chair, to provide context to our argument, permits me to define the key text as used in the motion. According to the American Psychological Association, social media are digital communication platforms through which online users create community to share information, messages, and ideas. Again, according to Oxford Dictionary, restrict means to prevent or to put a limit on. With this foundation, I proceed to submit my argument. Firstly, the chair, social media provide valuable developmental and social benefits to children. Surveys and peer review center provide that social media, children under 16 benefit from the use of social media through self-expression, social emotional development, through friendship and support. For example, Pew Research Center of Surveys of US found that children under 16 benefit from social media use. This creates avenue for children to prevent stress, and isolation. Changes on the benefits of social media to adolescents provide that 80% of children in Tema, metropolis use social media for social development and creativity. Again, parents use songs and videos from YouTube kids to help the development of their children mentally. My opponents may argue that children copy and practice what they see on screen, which is harmful to children under 16. But they should know that controlled and measured access by parents helps a lot. Secondly, the chair, many young people are using it to learn new skills. According to a study by the International Journal of Research and Innovation in Social Science, Ghana had about 7.95 million active social media users by early 2025. Just walk through Accra, Kumasi, or Taka. You will find teenagers editing videos, selling second-hand clothes on Instagram, or second-hand clothes on Instagram, or following or going TikTok app. That later turns to become a great source of income. So now, here is the road. Should we take away the opportunity from a 14-year-old boy in Taka who is teaching himself graphic design just because it isn't system? 10, we will talk about how social media ban for children would be counterproductive and set dangerous precedents. Australia was the first country in the world to give it a try. From December 2025, major apps like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube were legally allowed to restrict children under 16 from having accounts. A study by the University of Newcastle, published in the British Medical Journal, that found that more than 85% of children were still using these same apps just months after the ban has started. How did this happen? Many of them simply typed fake pen and fake video, carrying on as if nothing had happened. As a case study, a 15-year-old Noah Jones sued the Australian government for infringing in their right to express freedom, supported by his mother, who had trained his son under responsible use of technology. Now, if a technological resource country like Australia, with strict internet rules and enforcement, wouldn't stop its own children from getting around it. Why would anyone think it is going to work better in Ghana, where setting a simple online rule is even happening? In short, banning social media might seem like a good idea to protect them, but the evidence, even from a well-organized country like Australia, shows that these bans usually don't work. They push children to hide their online activities and block them from the raw chance to learn and connect. Which many Ghanaians are already relying on. The real question Ghana must be answered is that how do we look like we are protecting children?
Hello. The ever-wise chairperson, what would an impartial panel of judges and all protocols duly observed? Good morning. Representing CI Ahmadiyya Senior High School today, I am Manasseh Akomakalista, an eloquent supporting speaker, speaking vehemently for the motion of word codes. The use of social media should be restricted for children under 16 years, unquote. Impartial panel of judges, since my principal speaker has already clarified the motion, I will therefore proceed with point number 4. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we support the motion because restrictions will promote sleep qualities and promote overall physical well-being of children under 16 years. Children are children. As such, they cannot tell when to stop using social media devices. So far as the police never stop coming, they will never stop strolling. Meanwhile, phones and tablet screens emit short-wavelength blue light that shifts the brain into believing that it is daytime, stopping the release of melatonin, the hormones needed to fall asleep. Research has shown that people who spend more time on social media during the evening report more sleep disturbances and poorer sleep qualities. The United States Surgeon General Advisory reported a longitudinal study of 6,595 adolescents aged 12 to 15. Those spending more than 3 hours a day on social media face twice the risk of mental health issues, including symptoms of anxiety and depression. The same anxiety found that a consistent relationship between social media use and poor sleep qualities, and noted that more than a third of teenagers are on screens until midnight or later. Ladies and gentlemen, my opponent will say that this is a matter of parents or church. We cannot blame the parent because we've had the parents and tax. That cannot be done. Hence, the need for this restrictive intervention. Point 5, ladies and gentlemen, we support the motion because restrictions prevent suicidal tendencies in children under 16 years. Children under 16 years who may go through some sort of emergency situations such as bullying in school, relationship problems, conflict with friends, family problems, or fear of failure may have all these suicide thoughts. The church house, these victims mostly have nobody to talk to, so they turn to their very own source of predicament for solutions. Unfortunately, instead of offering them solutions, social media platforms post videos that glorify self-harm, content that disregard counseling centers, and content that contains instructions for suicide. Ladies and gentlemen, it may interest you to know that even when UK passes the law of restrictions, some social media companies still post videos, suicide-related content to children under 16 years with impunity, as according to an article published by Richard Wall on the August 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, should we remain unconcerned and watch all our future leaders die? No. That's why in another article published on the 31st of July 2026, some social media companies have been sued over the death of 14 teens in the USA. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, permit me to correct certain mistakes made by my opponents. My opponents asserted that kids use social media for school and academic success, and even cited an example of a 10-year boy who is learning photography in Taiwan. But check, social media in school environment directly correlates with lower academic performance and continuous classrooms with distractions. As according to a study by the London School of Economics, found that restrictions on social media in schools led to a 6.4% increase in student test scores, with the lowest achieving students benefiting the most. The chair, my opponent said that it violates their human rights, but the Child Rights International calls for a ban on social media access for children under 17 years. Impartial panel of judges. My opponent also alluded that parents should decide, not the government. Wow, the chair. My opponent shifted the burden entirely to parents, but this is not true.
Now, to the ever-wise chair, panel of adjudicators, co-debaters, ladies and gentlemen, good day. I am Princess Sewa, the supporting speaker for Juaben Senior High School, speaking in opposition of the motion before the House, which I quote and not quote. The use of social media should be restricted for children under 16 years. The chair, with the keys has already defined by my principal speaker, I shall advance my argument. Chair, to my first point, social media provides powerful learning tool for young people today, which means millions of children use social media platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok to learn things they don't get in school. Now, take a 15-year-old student who struggles with algebra or has the interest of learning basic computer programming skills. With social media, they can easily find short educational videos or create study groups with other students. This gives them simple explanations to make tougher subjects easier to understand. Research reports also shows that social media helps young people to explore hobbies, share creative projects, and discover early careers on. If we take social media away, we are not just removing entertainment, no. We are locking teens out of the free library of practical knowledge, and we are also stopping them from developing their digital skills for future jobs. To my second point, the chair, social media provides students with opportunities to speak and express their thought. Now, listen to this. Who are we to tell the 14-year-old girl in Ghana not to speak up about the things affecting her community? Who are we to silence a young boy who finds comfort, support, and encouragement in an online mental health? The proposition ban is really about silencing young people. It assumes that teenagers have nothing important to say and that what they have to say doesn't count. But that is not true. Young Ghanaians are already using social media to push for change, talk about social justice, and share about their art and poetry. By blocking them, they are meeting the very leaders for tomorrow. Are we so stuck in our old ways that we are afraid of what the future generation has to say? This ban is not a protective shield. It is a muzzle for the future. In conclusion, the chair, instead of restricting social media for children under 16 years, we should regulate it better.
mounted this podium to present a decent summary of the project with my supporting speaker and raising and affirming the motion that the use of social media should be restricted for children under 16 years and older. Point one, we believe that restriction prevents children under 16 years from sextortion. Point two, we believe that social media displaces real world social development. Point three, we accepted that restriction prevents cyberbullying. My supporting speaker accepted that it promotes sleep quality and physical well-being of the children. Point five, ladies and gentlemen, my supporting speaker again asserted that it prevents children from suicidal items. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to rebut certain fallacies my opponents mounted this podium to assert. They asserted that instead of restricting social media, it would lead to ban on social media. But an empirical evidence from the child rights reveals that they proposed the restriction on social media, but because many parents and the teenagers refuse to go through the rules and regulations that was given to them. Now, the child right proposed that there should be a ban on the use of social media. So my opponent's argument does not add up anywhere. My opponent again asked a question and she asserted that we should think about a 14-year-old child at Tapa learning graphic designing and others. But the answer to the question is, should we also look at the mere graphic designing that child is learning at Tapa and put his mental health at stake? A question I pose to you and my opponent, the answer is surely needed. My opponent again asserted that children use social media for education, or social media support children for education. But they should know that schools already provide safer platforms that supervise and also give us resources for education. After all, many of the teenagers go to the social media not for educational purposes, but rather TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, and many others. So the social media, as I'm speaking, is not meant for education, for reading and teenagers. A child has my opponent asserted that social media does not lead to cyberbullying and sextortion. Meanwhile, a report reveals that the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reported over 100 cases of sextortion daily, which means that the 100 cases times the 365 days we have in a year, making 365,000 cases in a year. And you are proposing that there is no sextortion cases. My opponent again asserted that there is no cyberbullying cases, or social media does not contribute to cyberbullying. But the report that I'm having here proves that social media have contributed to cyberbullying, online bullying, which leads to mental health illness of the teenagers. Ladies and gentlemen, my opponent again asserted that children use social media for fun and other stuff. But how can you claim that we use something for learning and you are proposing that that same thing is used for fun? How can we learn from something?
The chair, impartial model of judges, meticulous timekeeper, distinguished and support debaters. My second candidate is to conclude the point that I and my supporting speaker stated in the motion, quote unquote, the use of social media should be restricted for children under 16 years. First, the chair stated that social media provide valuable developmental and social benefits to children. Two, many young people are using it to learn new skills. Third, social media ban for children social media ban for children would serve dangerous consequences. Four, social media provide powerful learning tools for young people today. Five, social media provide children the opportunity to speak and express their thoughts. The chair, permit me to clear some fallacies made by my opponent. My opponent stated that we made mention of a 10-year. We never said that. Secondly, the chair, my opponent stated that we said cyber. Secondly, the chair, my opponent stated that we said we should use cyber. We never said that. We said here in the world the government means by certain policies. Certain policies. Maybe parents do not have time. Parents, because for example, let's parents do not have time to check their children. So this is where the government sets policies and restrictions on some of the content that are being exposed to children. The chair, to conclude the house, Ghana does not need to choose between loving its children and letting them go. Banning a child from social media does not remove the gender. It only removes the parent and teacher's rights. Thank you. Thank you.